Happy Victory Monday, 49er fans. Let's talk about this game that the San Francisco 49ers won. A lot of the player reactions, a lot of stuff that we're getting the day after on Overreaction Monday. Some of the content that has come out from this game. We're going to react to a bunch of different things and just vibe out and talk some 49ers football on this Victory Monday. I see that we got the Broncos and the Bills. I got them in the background. So I'm going to keep my eye on that game, but we're going to talk about everything to come from today and talk some 49ers football. But you guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat. Smash that like button. Let's talk some 49ers football. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. How are we doing, gang? You guys have had the opportunity to sleep on this game. You've had the opportunity to kind of see all the content from today. What are the vibes? How are we feeling about the San Francisco 49ers? Are we all the way back? I think the answer is yes. We are all the way back, and it feels fantastic. We do have some slight injury updates. We can kind of run over those really quickly just to get the administration work out the way. Obviously, I did video on this earlier, but just to run through it, 49ers Colton McKivitz got rolled up on, I guess, a little bit, or rolled his ankle. So he will be officially day-to-day moving forward. So it's a bit of a wait-and-see situation with him. Trent Williams got out of this game against the Jags without any additional injuries. So that's good news. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles is day-to-day with an ankle, and Aaron Banks already been ruled out with turf toe. Jonathan Feliciano is going to get the start for the second week in a row. And, today's been a interesting day. I've been trying to get through the film. I'm about 3/4 the way through the offensive tape. Things have just been popping up, doing content, all that different types of things. Just they kind of got away from me. So I'm planning on doing the offensive film tomorrow. Might even do it early tomorrow. Earlier in the day, maybe around 11:30. Just to get it going, because I know we want to watch some tape. Offensive line, wide receivers, everyone in between. But because we do have Jonathan Feliciano going to get more reps for the foreseeable future, why not? Well, I'll show a little Jonathan Feliciano clip. I will. So, like I said, I'm about 3/4 the way through the tape. Very impressed with him so far. Obviously, playing left guard, and you're going to get a nice little pancake action from Feliciano. We'll watch it from this angle. This gets you a really good look at Feliciano putting I think that's 52 in the turf. Just boom. And as you can see, Christian McCaffrey runs right off his hip. Nice work. Feliciano has looked great on tape. So I feel very confident with Jonathan Feliciano starting, moving forward. And honestly, from the sounds of it, it sounds like there was an opportunity that Jonathan Feliciano was actually going to be working in at right guard before the Aaron Banks injury. So, but we see Jonathan Feliciano putting in work at left guard. He's done a great job so far. So he's going to be slated to start next week, which, hey, I'm fine with it. He played really well against the Jaguars. So I'm all for that. It'll be interesting to see what the San Francisco 49ers do when they get Aaron Banks back and what they do with Jonathan Feliciano, especially if he turns in 2 weeks of really good football. It's going to be interesting to see what ultimately happens. But you've also had over 24 hours to process that the 49ers have Chase Young on their roster. How are we feeling about the new kid on the block? Chase Young obviously did a really good job against the Jags, had a half a sack officially, was a part of the meet at the quarterback party that he had with Nick Bosa. Yeah, this little clip.
Lawrence out of the shotgun. There's Chase Young from behind along with Bosa. And there are your Buckeyes together, forcing a fumble. Young and Bosa arrive at the same time.
You have to sack it. It's all good. It's all good. It's good to have you. You're going to meet there. You know that.
Love it, man. They genuinely have love for each other. Good to see the Buckeye boys getting after it. I mean, it just feels like such a natural fit for him.
Sweet moment on the sideline when you had your head on Nick's shoulder. That looked like it's a renewed romance.
It felt good, man. You know, Nick always been a big brother to me. He always opened that door for me, just for anything that I need from his way. And it always been there. It's crazy that we're together. You know, yeah.
Do they feel like old times out there?
Definitely.
Chase, there was cameras captured a sweet.
Felt like old times out there for Chase Young with Nick Bosa. Man, I love it. Such a natural chemistry already. The foundation is laid. The respect is there. These dudes are homies for sure. The Buckeye boys getting after it. You got Hargrave in there, Bosa in this picture. You got Chase Young. I mean, Chase Young is a specimen, man. I can't show that clip or else YouTube will have their way with me. This is one of the photos that Chase Young posted to Instagram, and that was Trent Williams' comment under it. So it feels like Chase Young is already fitting in really well with this roster. Obviously, when we heard about Chase Young getting traded, there were reports that, he's a freelancer. Maybe he just does his own thing. Yada, 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 right? When you see a player like this get moved for comp third, it's a little bit of feels like damage control, right? Like maybe by the Washington Commanders to kind of I don't know, soften the blow of the Commanders trading Chase Young to the 49ers for a comp third pick, which is essentially an early fourth with how it all breaks down. But remember, we heard those reports. He's a freelancer. He might have some attitude problems. I don't know. He's fitting in pretty well right now with the 49ers. And I mean, dude, he looks like a freak. He looks literally like him and Bosa were built in the defensive end laboratory. Just an absolute specimen. I love it. I love everything about it. Great, beautiful. This throw we'll break down on our film breakdown tomorrow. But man, this is I know we all love this throw in real time when it happened. But just being able to go back and watch it again and rewind it and watch it from multiple different angles and just kind of again look at how Brock completed this, like, this play single-handedly has to dispel any of the notions that he doesn't have the arm strength to play the quarterback position. Like, it has to. It just has to. Not being able to step into this. I mean, he pump fakes the safety to pull the safety up on Ayuk. That ensures he gets one-on-one coverage to the outside the numbers, I might add you, with George Kittle. And he had to be patient with this one. But as a result of that, he gets a defender in his lap, and he can't even step up into the throw. And the ball just, like, he even hits his elbow on the top of the defender's helmet, where he can't even, like in golf, you have your follow through, and throwing, you have your follow through to kind of push the momentum through. He can't even do that because he hits his arm on the top of a helmet. Oh, well, hello. I don't think you guys can see it. Yeah, I don't think you can see it. So my 1-year-old does this thing. I have like these double doors to my office. It's one of my favorite things because he pushes them open and then just stands there like, I'm here, Daddy. Look at me. And here he is. Oh, you want to make an appearance? Yeah, it's on your face, booger boy. You got a booger. You can't have a booger on the live. Oh, football? Football. Can you say, let's go? No? Okay. But anyways, beautiful throw by Brock. Yeah. Yeah, football. 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 You say go Niners? All right, time for you to go. Say bye. 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 Oh. Oh, gotta love it. Working from home, always. Something like that's always gonna happen. Something's bound to happen when you work from home. But good stuff. Love my little guy. Is that my kid? No, that's just some kid I found on the walking down the street. I guess he's mine now. No, jokes. Those are jokes. Yes, that is my son. Is that your kid? Nah, I don't know who that is. I don't know that little guy. I don't know where he came from. He just kind of showed up one day and he just never left. Oh my goodness. So anyways, what other stuff did we get today? Oh, I don't know. Did you guys see this? Did you guys see this little fun thing? I posted this. Went mini viral today.
You're right, we don't. Hey, they don't know what they're doing. You're right, we don't.
Hey, they don't know what they're doing. Yeah, we don't. We don't know what we're doing. And that's what it felt like, I think, for the Jags, man. Just felt like they didn't know what they were doing. And the 49ers absolutely dominated them. Beautiful. Justin says, Brad, that guard whose clip I tagged you in on Twitter, Cooper BB, accepted his Senior Bowl invite. Really hope you're going this year, man. Yeah, I think I gotta go. It's been 2 years since I've been to the Senior Bowl. I think I gotta go. And it just really jumpstarts the whole draft process. 49ers are going to have a first-round pick this year. They're going to have 10 picks total. I think even if I have to sandwich the Senior Bowl from NFC Championship, Senior Bowl, Super Bowl, I'm willing to do the work. I think I'm gonna have to go to the Senior Bowl, and I've never heard of Cooper before you tagged me in him today, Justin. So that is definitely going to be a guy that I'm going to look into further. I did see, I think you said he hasn't given up a sack in his career or something like that. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a guy that I'm going to look into a little bit more, because I do imagine the 49ers will be adding offensive line in this draft. So, I think I'm going to get the Senior Bowl again this year. Again, like I said, it comes in that week in between the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, and I expect the 49ers to be playing in both. But I'm going to go to the Senior Bowl this year for sure. Get the scouting started off in the right direction this year. And we'll be able to get it's going to be a good draft season for sure. 3 years with no sacks and positional versatility. Oh, music to my ears. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think we were talking about it last week. I think it might have even been you, Justin. Like I did a mock draft last week. I did a mock draft in November. Like, that is just not typical, especially with how much 49ers content I do. And, the 49ers are, as of late, playing late into the playoffs. So draft content normally doesn't start until the playoffs or the 49ers are out. But yeah, I think we were talking about offensive tackles. I started looking up offensive tackles. Because I think they're going to definitely be targeting a tackle in this draft. I think they have to. They've kind of been pushing it off a little bit. And I think, we'll see what happens with Colton McKivitz. But I would say Colton had so far what I've seen from Colton in pass protection, look like he struggled a little bit. Just really struggling to anchor in pass protection. I think he held up in all the other spots pretty well, but when it came to managing a bull rush, he just couldn't anchor, and he was getting driven back into Brock Purdy pretty consistently. Brock had to escape a couple times. Again, like the throw that we watched, he got pushed into Brock. So I don't know if that was ankle related, like Colton McKivitz was dealing with an injury and that played a part in it, or what. But definitely Colton had some struggles against the Jags. I thought for the most part he's played pretty well this season. Obviously hasn't been the best, but I thought he's played pretty well. But this game, you could definitely see the struggles. You could definitely see his struggles popping up in pass protection. But to be perfectly honest, the same thing happened with Trent. So Trent definitely wasn't 100%. You could see that on film. So Trent was having a hard time, and he, definitely wasn't a typical Trent game when you flip on the tape. So to me, that tells me that he really gutted out that performance to be on that field. And, he did what he could. He definitely did what he could. But I think, it wasn't just Colton McKivitz that was the main reason why that was the most pressured Brock Purdy has been in his career. Like Nick Wagner put out this, I can even pull it up, put out this tweet that Brock Purdy was pressured on 50% of his dropbacks, which is a career high. And it wasn't just Colton McKivitz, there were pressures coming from the left side as well, which, isn't really typical. But Brock Purdy overcame it and threw a career high 143 yards while being pressured in this game. 8 for 12, 2 touchdowns. And throughout his career, he has 8 touchdowns and 1 interception when he's being pressured. So, Colton struggled. I would say Trent struggled. Interior did well. Honestly, Jonathan Feliciano looked like one of the best offensive linemen on the field yesterday. So I think that's at least a positive to come away with that. Chili says, what game are you most excited for, Eagles or Ravens? Honestly, there's a lot of intrigue with the Ravens with how they're playing right now. I saw they lost. I haven't looked much into their game. But I did see that they lost. Who did they lose to? Oh, they lost to Cleveland. Yeah, that's right. They lost to Cleveland on the game-winning field goal. And so I think that's a good measuring stick for us because obviously we played Cleveland and we know how Cleveland is going to be. We know what their strengths are. And they took it to the Ravens, and they beat the Ravens. So honestly, because of what happened last year, it's going to be the Eagles. Like the game that I'm most looking forward to is definitely Eagles, just because of the history that's going to be involved, the storylines, the trash talk, all the offseason, everything. Starting back at the Super Bowl, starting back with my interview with Brandon Ayuk, that really sparked a ton of the kind of talk back and forth between the Eagles and the 49ers. It's got to be the Eagles. But I'm very intrigued by that Ravens game with how they've been playing this year and how the 49ers plan on stopping their run game because that's what they've been able to do so well. They've been able to run the football. So we'll see. But definitely the Eagles for sure. For sure. Chat legend Don Burr. Man, Don Burr, you guys have come a long way since that week 1 opening game. What was it, 2021 season? You guys have come a long way. That being the Detroit Lions. However, I will have to say I've been a big believer in Goff. I've talked about it a long time. I like Goff because I'm a Cal fan. So I watched all 4 years of Jared Goff, and I knew he's a good quarterback. He just struggled sometimes under pressure. And for whatever reason, didn't feel like he was a good fit with the Rams. But, man, Goff is playing extremely well. Oh. Zay Jones was arrested for domestic battery. Ooh. That's not great. That's not great. Oh, but yeah, I don't remember what I was talking about. Sean Jolly. Oh, this name sounds familiar. I think this was the guy that you liked. I remember. I remember you putting me on to this guy. Yep. And I searched Sean Jolly on just, to get a little refresher. And Justin's tweet is oh, it's from today. It says 49ers should sign Sean Jolly from the Rams practice squad to play nickel. I remember you putting me on to Sean Jolly. That's why that name is familiar. Interestingly enough, Justin, in 2020, the fewest receptions allowed among cornerbacks with 50 plus targets were two players. Shamar Jean Charles, who was currently signed to the active roster in the move with Drake Jackson, who had 17, which is only gave up 17 receptions in 2020. And then Sean Jolly, his teammate, gave up the fifth most receptions with 27. Yeah, I'd be for it. I'd absolutely be for it. Yep, I remember now. I remember Sean Jolly. I was like, oh, that name sounds really familiar. I see it now. Would I be interested in that? Yeah, I would. I mean, we just signed his former teammate from App State. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they have their eye on him as well. They obviously would know him well in doing the research on Shamar. So definitely could be an option. Did I see the report on Patrick Surtain? I did. San Francisco. Shout out John Lynch, man. John Lynch was active. He was calling on everybody. He called on Brian Burns. He called on Patrick Surtain. Talk about, not leaving any stone unturned. It's, again, one of the reasons why I really like John Lynch. I don't know why John Lynch gets a bad rap. If something goes wrong, people are like, "Oh, fire John Lynch," and it's just like, do you even know why you're saying fire John Lynch? I like John Lynch a lot, man. I feel like as a figurehead for the organization, I feel like you couldn't ask for a better ambassador of the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, you talk about his time playing in the league. You talk about his ability being a broadcaster and all the connections he has, and just, the type of guy he is. Yeah, John's great, dude. I don't understand how anyone can really talk bad about John Lynch. And like you said, he goes after. He's aggressive. He's aggressive. He tries to get after it. But yeah, I saw that report. 49ers went after a couple people. I mean, ultimately landing on Chase Young, which, I mean, talk about a good trade. Chase Young. And you guys know I love Brian Burns. But I think, like, if you had to put your business hat on and, like, you had to make a move based on all the different factors, and they're like, all right, we would give you Brian Burns for a first, second, and a fourth, or you could get Chase Young for a comp third. Even if you gave me, the biggest Brian Burns fan imaginable, like the option to trade for two expiring contracts of two very young defensive edge players, like, you really have to have an honest conversation about what is given up to get that player. And it's not just a Madden move. Like, obviously, if I could add a player like Brian Burns, I'm going to add him. But when you look at the compensation given up, if it's a comp third versus a first and multiple mid-round picks, like, that's a lot. That's a lot compared to getting Chase Young for a comp third. So I think sometimes you have to be prudent in those situations. Now, I don't know what came of those conversations or those negotiations, that maybe if they did have any, or what the cost maybe would have been for Brian Burns. But I think, the 49ers getting Chase Young for a comp third pick is such a steal. It's just such a steal. I don't know how else to put it. Um, the value in that trade is phenomenal, and we're already seeing the returns. Um, it's fantastic. So, really love the deal. Really love what the 49ers did. But does that mean that the 49ers still have spots where they need to fill? Is cornerback a position that you are still concerned about? Because obviously, one of the things that we saw out of this game was the 49ers kind of adjusted the way they went about their defensive backs rotation. It wasn't Isaiah Oliver out there, you know? It wasn't Isaiah Oliver. It was Demo in the slot. It was Ambry Thomas on the outside. And we really haven't seen Ambry Thomas at all this year. And Ambry came out, made some plays. But I think, Demo still kind of struggled a little bit. I feel like Demo made some good plays for sure, but he also made some plays where, like, you're still seeing, like, wrapping up seems to be kind of like just wrapping up, taking players down to the ground, just, still seems to be a sticking point. And one thing that I would like to see him kind of improve upon is continue to tackle to the ground, which, again, for me, based on what I've seen from Demo, he's a physical cornerback. Like, tackling really has never been an issue for Diamador. When I go back to watching him against, like, earlier in the season, I remember one game, one of, like, my main takeaways from watching the defensive film was, like, Diamador was flying around the field and making tackles, like just tackles left and right. And that was one of my main takeaways from one of the games early on the season. It's like, it feels like he's standing out for the opposite reasons these last couple games. So I don't think it's lack of ability. I have a lot of faith in Diamador Lenore to play good at the position. I just think I think there's room for him to play better than what we've seen right now. So we'll see. We'll see what we get out of Diamador. We'll see what the cornerback rotation is going to look like, if it's going to maintain being Ambry, Diamador in the slot, and Charvarius Ward. But I felt like those guys played a lot better this week, and coincidentally seemed to coincide with the defensive line playing extremely well. So, yes, the 49ers maybe could have upgraded at cornerback for sure in the trade deadline to, go get Jalen Johnson. That would be pretty fire to have right about now. But you can also upgrade your defensive line, and your defensive line can aid your pass rush. And that was why pass rush for me was that's why for me it was the number one priority, is because pass rush can do two things. It can help the other guys on the defensive line, and it can also aid the secondary. And I think that's what we've seen. I mean, Javon Hargrave went crazy in this game. He had a multiple plays that contributed or influenced turnovers. So when your defensive line is getting after it, when they're causing penetration, when they're getting after the passer, when they're doing all these different types of things, it really helps your coverage on the back end. So that's why for me, pass rush was always the number one priority. And I think we already saw it pay off. We've already seen the benefits of it just in this game against the Jags. So the question is what are we going to get moving forward? Are they going to continue to keep shuffling these guys back and forth? Who's going to stick? And I think obviously we want to know that answer by the playoffs. Like we don't want to go into the playoffs still trying to figure out like what our best 11 is on defense. I think it's fine right now while we're in season. Obviously, I would have liked to get a better handle on it kind of in the first quarter of the season. But as long as by the playoffs we have a group that's ready to go and they have some momentum and they can continue to build upon it, I got no problems with them continuing to try to figure out their best 11 on defense. And last week, the 11 we saw looked pretty damn good. I haven't watched the defensive tape yet. I'll probably try to get into that tonight. After I wrap up the offense. But I saw Jair Brown out there. I looked up, is that Jair? It's like, okay. We got some Jair in there. All right. I'd love to see more Jair. What also is going to be interesting too is to see Samuel Womack, Darrell Luter Jr., and Beal. Are those guys going to get activated to the active roster anytime soon? Or are the 49ers just content with keeping them on their current designations and just keeping the current roster as is? That's been one of the fascinating, I think, aspects of this like whole situation is I think the 49ers have done a phenomenal job at really leveraging IR and the PUP and these lists for keeping guys on their roster that they don't necessarily want to cut. I mean, again, like we haven't seen Danny Gray. He's just been hanging out on IR. Drake Jackson is the recent IR kind of just hang out for a little bit because, we're going to rely on these other guys first. And then and I listened to Kyle Shanahan's press conference. Apparently Jackson is suffering from some knee tendonitis. He had an injection. And so they just put him on IR for 4 weeks, and they're going to see what they want to do at the end of that 4 weeks. So that gives them some roster flexibility there. And they signed Shamar at cornerback in that corresponding move. So they definitely have been leveraging these IR and PUP lists to kind of massage the current roster, which I have no problems with. I think it's really hard for any one of these wide receivers to crack the roster behind Jawan Jennings. Like it's like the 49ers just really, they don't run a huge heavy rotation at wide receiver. It's Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings. Maybe on occasion we'll get Ray. Maybe on occasion we'll see Willie Snead. Maybe on occasion we'll see Ronnie Bell. Outside, the injuries that happened in the New York Giants game where it forced Ronnie Bell to get some playing time. He got his first career touchdown in that game. But outside of that, it's really the main three at wide receiver: Jawan, Deebo, and Ayuk. But man, I'm not gonna lie. I know a lot of people were like, "Man, we really miss Debo Samuel and his importance to the offense." These last couple weeks and all that type of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that to an extent. Of course, anytime you have a player of Debo Samuel's caliber who's not out on the field, you're going to, of course, miss that guy. But I was like, I've seen the 49ers overcome certain injuries to certain players. But on the very first play of the game, and we'll break it down when I do the film breakdown tomorrow, George Kittle is wide open because they run orbital motion with Debo Samuel, and the defense like freaks out and they shift everyone towards the direction that Debo's going in orbit motion, and they don't even pay attention to George Kittle. And George Kittle's literally unguarded wide open because the defense went alert to Debo Samuel going in motion. So like on the first play, I was like, okay, yeah. We've definitely missed Debo Samuel for sure with and again, like that's a lot of what Kyle Shanahan does is the gravity. We talk about the gravity with CMC all the time because defenses have to account for CMC wherever he is, wherever he moves. If he breathes, if he sneezes, they got to know what CMC is doing. And then watching that on the first play, I was like, oh yeah, they need to do that with Debo as well. And we saw it. Debo Samuel had a easy, I want to say it's easy, but he had the end around where he had blockers out in front and he walked in for a touchdown basically. And, I was like, yeah, we've missed Debo. We've missed Debo for sure. I knew we missed Debo, but like actually seeing it come together on tape, and the way the defenses are now reacting to Debo when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, I was like, okay, yeah, for sure. Like that changes a lot of things. Because like I talked about it on one hand, when we would have like Ray come across the formation in a similar motion, they were just basically blitzing the safety off the backside where basically filling the gap of that was left by the pulling wide receiver, which was like Juwan Jennings at the time, and they would just blow stuff up. I remember the Bengals did that, and I was like, oh, there's one way to stop our run game. But when you put Debo in that motion, they're like, oh my God, like, oh, Debo's moving. They're like, where's Debo? Where do we go? What do we do? They definitely had to pay attention to Debo, and you could see it. And I agree with this. He definitely stresses them horizontally, and they were reacting to it for sure. But I mean, everyone, everyone but CMC 8. Weird development. Of course, I felt it coming. Like I felt it coming. Like I was like, man, especially with the game and the way it was playing out, I knew Kyle Shanahan was just calling the game as it was coming to the offense, and he wasn't like force feeding CMC. But I was like, man, it just, you had the touchdown to Ayuk, you had touchdown to Debo, Kittle had the touchdown, and then the game starts to get away from, it wasn't competitive. It's like, are we going to get the CMC record breaker? But again, all credit to Kyle in a blowout victory, going for it on 4 downs with CMC in, force feeding him the ball. I was like, yeah, I like that a lot. Like it didn't happen, and it would have been so great for Christian McCaffrey to break that record. I mean, that's a really hard record to put yourself in a position to break. 18 straight games with a touchdown. Like obviously he tied the record, but Man, they tried. They tried. And as I can give the respect to at least trying, like at least force feeding him. I was like, all right, this is cool. I was like, I could vibe with this. Because I'm sure he appreciated it. I'm sure the team appreciated it. It just didn't fall their way. So, but the offense looked great. Brock looked great. Defense looked great. For me, the defensive line was the MVP of that game, and that was I think who I called on kind of in the lead up to that game was like I really wanted the defensive line to have a game. Like I really really wanted that. And that's exactly what we got. We got a sack from Cleveland, sack from Eric, Bosa, Young, Hargrave. Defensive line was getting after it. Even Kinlaw was showing up a little bit as well. So defensive line, very happy. We finally got a defensive line game and was big time waiting for that. So that was good to see. And as a result, we saw everyone kind of make plays off the D line, right? Talanoa Hufanga got an interception on a throw that Trevor Lawrence was pressured on. Huff gets a pick. Warner gets a pick off a pressure on Trevor Lawrence. So again, the defensive line is literally the one of the best cures for a struggling secondary. So defense, phenomenal. Offensive line, I did show love for Feliciano already, but I'm not opposed to showing it again. I do think you could definitely make the case from watching the tape that he was the 49ers best offensive lineman against the Jags. So, I mean, that's pretty that's a pretty interesting development, that your backup starting left guard ended up being the best performer on your offensive line. I can only think, like I said, basically I'm about 75% through the tape, and I only saw one play from Feliciano where the defensive lineman got the better of him. Other than that, he was doing really well. So if Feliciano in this game is looking like the best offensive lineman on the 49ers, well, what does that mean for him moving forward? That means you got to figure out a way to get him in the lineup. And that's basically what Kyle said before the turf toe injury to Aaron Banks. So that's how I see it playing out. Now it's not like we're having to bench a guy based on the notion that we hope Feliciano will be better than him. I think if the 49ers ultimately do make a move, and let's say that when they get Aaron Banks back, they plug in Aaron Banks and they're like, well, Feliciano has to play. He's either going to have to play at center or he's going to have to play at guard. I think they might put him in at right guard. So we'll see. We'll see how it ultimately plays out. But if these two games go by and Feliciano is playing at this level, he has to be on the field. He has to. And we know the 49ers split reps with Burford last year. And a lot of that had to do with his confidence. And I think giving Burford, it at this point, based on hindsight being what it is, it felt like they're like, all right, Burford, we're going to give you until the bye to kind of hold the job down and to kind of prove to us that, we can rely on you and we can count on you. And that's just the hardest part about young offensive linemen is just play in, play out, being reliable. I still think Burford has a ton of talent, and I think he still has a ton of promise. But I would imagine if they are going to start Banks, that Feliciano would kick over to right guard and probably start there. So um I when Feliciano came in against the Giants, performed extremely well. Um you guys know I'm bullish. I was bullish on Feliciano when we signed him. I was like, this is one of the most underrated signings because we signed him as a backup, but he's a starting caliber player. Anytime you can get a starting caliber player on a backup type deal who doesn't have to be the starter, that's good depth. It's a good thing to have. So I think Feliciano is going to make the 49ers have a tough call at uh, right guard. Could Feliciano be threatening Banks' job at all? I don't think so. I think, I wouldn't say Banks was playing perfect, up until the injury. He was having his struggles here or there. But I think they feel more comfortable with Banks at this point. So uh I do believe there would be an option for him to shift over to right guard. And so we'll see. We'll see. But it's good to know that we have an interior guy like Feliciano who's playing so well that we're trying to figure out, like, how do we get this guy on the roster? Like, how do we get him playing time? How do we insert him into the lineup? That's a good problem to have. So we'll see what happens when Banks comes back. But if Feliciano turns in another week of consecutively good play in a row, I would imagine he will force the 49ers to start him. It's just one of those things. Like, if you got a player playing well and he's playing better than some of your starters, then you are forced to make the tough decision of, well, if this guy who isn't a starter is playing as good or if not better than our current starters, maybe he should be starting. So I think that's going to be the conversation when Banks comes back is, what are we doing with Feliciano? Because he needs to be in the lineup. So my assumption is they would probably kick him over to right guard. But it's also going to be really interesting to see, like, how confident the 49ers feel with McKivitz as well, just because, he gave up some pressures this last Sunday. And so do they want to try more at right tackle? We'll find out. Brad, if Purdy beats Philly, do you think he's better than Hurts? Or there's at least an argument for Purdy being better than Hurts? I mean, it all depends, right? There's so many different variables, especially when it comes to comparison. Like, quarterbacks can win football games, but not theoretically have a good game, like, because obviously defense, running game, special teams, all that type of stuff has to be in play. I think right now, like, it's really easy to say that Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback than Brock Purdy, because for the simple fact that we've seen 4 years of Jalen Hurts. We have 18 games of Brock Purdy, kind of spread out over 2 seasons. So I think it's a bit premature, regardless of how good Brock is playing. And I just want to put that out there. I think Brock is playing phenomenally. I think he's playing like, again, he can be playing at like a top 10 caliber type player. Doesn't mean he's top 10 yet. He can be playing at a top 10 type of play. But I do think it's too early when it comes to trying to compare him to other guys that have large bodies of work. Like the problem with the Jalen Hurts comparison is we know Jalen. Like we know where he struggles, we know where he excels, we know how he handles pressure. I mean, he almost beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year. If it didn't come down for like some plays on defense and all that type of stuff. Um, so all that being said is I think it's just too soon. It's too soon. Doesn't mean that conversation can't happen one day. But I think that's too soon. Whoo, toe drag swag, Cortland Sutton. Dang, that's a crazy toe drag swag by Cortland Sutton. That's for sure a touchdown. If you're watching Monday Night Football, that is for sure a touchdown. By a very close margin, I might add. But that was some swaggerific toe drag swaggy. That was for sure a catch. Purdy is good, but he needs talent around him. I'm worried next year if we can't afford Ayuk, then Purdy will need to produce less. He's not dynamic enough yet. I don't necessarily buy that fully 100%. I do believe I kind of feel like Crusher a little bit, like everyone needs talent around them. Like look at Patrick Mahomes right now without, looks like he's playing like his wide receivers are like future bag boys and stuff. Like Sky Moore hasn't been good. Kadarius Toney is an absolute head case and is more concerned about his rapping career than actually being a good football player. MVS is decent, but he's never going to be an elite type playmaker. Obviously, Travis Kelce is, an elite tight end, but, Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you're seeing him struggle a little bit with drops and wide receivers not making plays. So I think the conversation about Purdy where people have a hard time with like compartmentalizing his talent versus other people's talent. I think the people who, and I'm not saying that this is Pete, I'm saying like your Nick Wrights, your armchair analysts, guys who maybe have one eye on what the 49ers are doing that aren't studying Brock Purdy. Like there's a difference between one, box score watching, two, kind of paying attention and watching games, three, actually actively watching games on game days, and then a completely tier below that are people who actually study the film, like who actually go back into it and try to understand it at an even higher level. So I think a lot of the people who perpetuate the Brock Purdy's a system quarterback, Brock Purdy is only good because of the weapons around him. See, Deebo Samuel comes back. Look what happens. Like, Brock can throw the football. He can make reads. He can manipulate defenses. He can get the ball out on time. He can do all these different types of things regardless of who's catching the football. And I think that's the part where people have a hard time like really understanding like where Brock Purdy's at. That's where I feel like I have a good understanding and I feel like Brock is a good quarterback because I can see all the things that Brock Purdy does that has nothing to do with anything else than him executing. So I think regardless of weapons, Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. And to the other point, it's like, yeah, every quarterback, every offense needs weapons. Like every coach looks better when they have top tier talent, um, and all those different types of things. So that's kind of like, I just think part of the problem with the discussion surrounding Brock Purdy is that a lot of the people who carry some of the loudest voices don't actually know what they're talking about, other than like these talking points that make you sound like you know what you're talking about, versus like, there's no way in hell Nick Wright is breaking down tape. Like there's no way. Like there's no way. There's no way these people who are tasked with covering multiple leagues, talking about every team, are sitting here studying Brock Purdy. It's just not how it's going to work. It's just not how it's going to work. Mark says, huge believer here, huge Purdy believer here, but some sus decisions in the last few weeks. Can we talk about the TD to Ayuk? Yeah, I would say that's the only issue that I've had with Brock Purdy throughout his entire time with the San Francisco 49ers, were some of the throws that he made late in games against the Vikings and the Bengals. But that's it. Like, really. Like, there aren't many others that came really during his rookie year. You go through all the games, he played relatively clean. The game where he really struggled the most, I would say his rookie season, was against the Raiders. But even in that game against the Raiders, he made some incredible throws, and ultimately led them from behind to win that game. So, but that, and I think that also goes, but it goes along with the territory as well. I don't want to make it sound like an excuse. It's always going to come across like an excuse, but every quarterback makes mistakes. Every quarterback makes throws where you're like, oh no, don't want to see that. Like Josh Allen, I saw almost had a pick, but the guy didn't get his feet in bounds. Like Josh Allen, we'll talk about till we're blue in the face as being one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the NFL. It's like, oh, he's number one. No, Patrick Mahomes is number one. Okay, fine. Well, Josh Allen's number two. Josh Allen's out here on Monday Night Football playing against the Denver Broncos and almost throws a pick to an underneath linebacker who just isn't able to get his feet in bounds. Like, I think people need to stop treating Brock in one hand like he is an elite guy, and then if Brock makes a mistake, that somehow proves that he's not good. You know what I mean? It's like there's so much nuance that comes into quarterback evaluation and player evaluation in general, and it's just like, that's the hard part with Brock versus the Minnesota Vikings and the Bengals, is he played extremely well in both of those games leading up to the turnovers. So if he can correct the turnovers, correct the decision making, correct some of the throws, and continue to take care of the football, then Brock's a good quarterback. It's just what it is. Like, I've seen enough from Brock to believe he's a good quarterback. What we got to see from Brock is, can he take care of the football? And with the touchdown to Brandon Ayuk, obviously, Kyle Shanahan did not like that call. He made that very well known, which I thought was interesting. But he made it a point to let the whole world know that he thought that was a terrible decision by Brock. But I think one of the things with Brock too is, like, you got to live with his ability to make plays. Like, yeah, are there decisions that you're like, you know, oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Oh, he scored a touchdown. Like I like that. I don't mind it, you know. I don't mind it at all. And yes, it might be playing outside of scheme. Like I think back to that amazing touchdown that he had against the Raiders, his rookie season. I believe he had one of his first reads open to Jawan Jennings, and I think it was a slant off the right side, but he bailed out to his left, and then he layered this beautiful ball over like 4 defenders into the back corner of the end zone to George Kittle. And it's like, I think you want that, to be honest with you. Like, you want that ability. Like, it might not come exactly as it was designed or how you would envision for it to be executed. But at a certain point, it's these dudes out here playing the game and they got to make plays. And Brock Purdy makes a play. I'm not going to be mad at a guy for making a play, even if it was kind of questionable, thrown across your body like that. But look at what happened. Look at what happened. Scored a touchdown. So I think, again, the biggest thing is exactly if Mahomes makes that throw, it's how amazing is Patrick Mahomes to just make this mind-boggling throw. And that's the problem with just the perception of where Brock is right now. Is he doesn't have that cachet yet. He hasn't built up that confidence in people, and so people are still trying to figure out what Brock is. They're still trying to figure out, like, is he any good? Is it his weapons? Is it his coaching? And then, of course, you have the detractors that start piling on, and then you start questioning yourself, like, wait, is Brock really that good? Um, I have no problem with his ability to make plays. I prefer, obviously. I would say one thing that I'm least concerned of as Josh Allen throws a wide open touchdown. I think one of the things that I'm least concerned about is Brock Purdy playing within scheme. Like, that's probably the least of my worries when it comes to Brock Purdy as a quarterback. I would say his best attribute, arguably, his ability to play within scheme and to play within the structure of the offense. So if Brock's got a ad lib here or there, I don't care, as long as he takes care of the football. As long as he takes care of the football, and that's what he did. They scored a touchdown. I'm fine with it. Fine with it. Score touchdowns. Can't be mad at it. Now, Kyle can because he's the coach, but I'm not. I mean, what? I mean, here's my counterpoint to like why you can't be mad at Brock Purdy throwing that touchdown to Brandon Ayuk. Is like, go back to that Bengals game when Brock was doing everything he could like in that his ability would allow him to do. He was scrambling to the right and throwing across his body. He threw the huge third down conversion. I think it was to Kittle, remember, against the Bengals, where he dips out to the right and he just flings the ball all the way across his body, gets it to Kittle, and converts a huge third down. And then you have a situation where they're trying to score. He bails out to the right. He flips it back to Christian McCaffrey across his body for a touchdown. So it's like, yes, maybe you don't want that to be a normal thing, but if he can find success in doing it and he feels comfortable doing it, like I've seen Brock make these cross the body throws 3 weeks in a row. He did it. He did it to Brandon Ayuk. He did it to Brandon Ayuk in Minnesota. Don't forget, Ayuk dropped the ball, but he did this. He rolling out to the left across his body. He literally did a 180 mid-air and threw across the field to Brandon Ayuk. Like, if he feels comfortable in doing that, I don't want to take that out of his game. Like, obviously, like, you can get risky with it and you don't want to be careless, but he clearly feels comfortable going one direction and throwing opposite. So I really, until it bites us in the behind, like really bites us, I don't have that much of a problem with it. Like, I think that's part of when you go back to the 2021 draft process of like, what kind of quarterback are we getting? Are we getting Mac Jones? Or are we getting Justin Fields? Are we getting Mac Jones? Or are we getting Trey Lance? The main reason we didn't want Mac Jones is because we didn't want a statue in the pocket. We wanted a guy that could make second effort plays, second chance plays, and turn nothing into something. And so if Brock's going to turn nothing into something, I'm not going to get mad at it. I'm really not. Like, especially if he feels comfortable with it and he's being successful at it. So Kyle can do whatever he wants. He's the head coach. But from my perspective and my perception, I don't got no problems with it. I don't got no problem. I want a playmaker. That's the whole point. I want a playmaker. I agree with this 100%. I started my live at like 5, and I'm like, why does it feel like 9 o'clock right now? This daylight savings time is screwing me up. Part of the reason why, like, I was just like, I didn't get to breaking down all the film enough. So I was like, do I want to do a film breakdown at 5 o'clock at not like in the evening while Monday Night Football is going on? I was like, that just doesn't feel like good timing. So I'm gonna do the film breakdown tomorrow, and there's a lot of plays to unpack that are really good, and I'm looking forward to it. Preach. You can't be a playmaker if you never try to make those kinds of plays. Exactly. He's got to figure out what he can and can't get away with. That's part of Brock Purdy's process right now. So I'm fine with it. Take some chances. Obviously, if the game dictates it, I'm fine with chances. Just don't want to see careless mistakes. That's what it comes down to. And I think he's fine. I got no problems. Oh, VZ says, just got back from Elk Grove Golf Tournament. Got to meet the GOAT, Jerry. Let's go. Nice. Jerry's out here at the golf tournament. Was he participating or is he just vibing? But that's cool that you got to meet Jerry Rice. That's dope. It's dope. But do I think there's going to be hella trash talk come Philly week? Oh, 100%. Did you see Darius Slay give a compliment to the 49ers? I think it was the 49ers or 49ers defense on Twitter. And all the Eagles fans went at his neck. So if they're attacking their own player over the San Francisco 49ers, then yeah, the trash talk is going to be pretty epic when it comes to the 49ers versus Philadelphia Eagles. Like, like Slay has a podcast, right? Slay is, that's one of the things is like that the new age that we live in that did not exist just two years ago was in-season player podcasts. Like, it just didn't exist. So we didn't get players' takes on all 32 teams across the league week in and week out. It just didn't happen. Players never talked about other teams. Players never heaped praise on other teams and things like that. So when you have Slay coming out being like, oh, the 49ers look good, Eagles fans are like, what? Eagles fans are like, go play for the 49ers then. Like, what the hell? Like, they can't compute that Slay is half in the media game. So if you're half in the media game as a player and your podcast is based on talking about the league, that means you're going to be forced to talk about the teams that you like and you don't like and the rivals. But you have to, right? It's about giving objective opinions. It's about giving objective opinions, but fans are fans, and they're like, well, wait, you're on the Eagles and you're giving the 49ers a compliment? That's like sacrilegious. Can't do that, but that's just how it works. It's the way our media cycle is now works. Is we hear from everyone. I just posted Micah Parsons' reaction to the 49ers beating the Jags before I came on here. It's just how it works. We get to hear from players week in, week out. So it's pretty interesting, but it is what it is. But like I said, I'm going to do the offensive film breakdown tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to maybe try to do it around lunchtime, 11:30, 12. So if you guys want to see the offensive breakdown, and I'm having fun breaking down the 49ers offensive plays, obviously the big plays, but other plays that are standing out to me that didn't necessarily stand out during the game. So I'm going to do the offensive film breakdown probably, like I said, around 11:30, 12. And probably try to do defense the next day if I can. But we'll see how it works because I do want to do the defensive film breakdown, especially with how they played. So I'm going to keep you in the loop, but I'll see you guys tomorrow. Appreciate you guys. As always, tapping in, checking in to talk 49ers football, and we will do it again tomorrow. So until then, appreciate you guys. Smash that like button on your way out. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see you.